Hi, I'm going to talk to you about how one day computers might be able to cure malaria using some toothpaste. It's bioinformatics, which means using computers to compare the DNA and protein sequences of living things to see how similar they are. It's because all living things share similar biochemistry. In fact, really basic biochemical processes are universal across all types of life, regardless of how different they look. And it's the proteins that carry out these processes, which means that the proteins will also be similar, and they'll be more similar the more closely related the species are. The DNA is what codes for the protein, and so if the proteins are similar, the DNA will have a similar code, and that's what the computers can look for in bioinformatics. It's like machines. A car, a speedboat, an airplane all do very different things, but the components in their engines are all very similar, and they're all evolved from a common evolutionary ancestor, the first combustion engine. It's the same in living things. And if you want to understand how a machine is put together, you look at the blueprints. It's the same with life. You look at the blueprints, the DNA, the genome. So, how does this help us cure malaria? Well, if you look at the genome for the malaria parasite, Plasmodium falciparum, you see that it's actually very closely related to both bacteria and plants. So, scientists look at their model species. The model species for bacteria is E. coli. Scientists always like to have bacteria on the end of a pin, and so I've got some E. coli here. The model species for plant is a type of cress, and so I also have some lovely cress. So what do? Well, you compare the DNA sequences from the malaria parasite to the bacteria. If they're the same, then you might have the same proteins, and you might be able to use anti-malarial drugs based upon existing antibiotics. If you compare the malaria to cress, and that's also similar, then you might be able to use some anti-malarial drugs based upon existing herbicides. The clever bit is you then compare it to the human genome to make sure that whatever drug you use to kill the parasite doesn't also kill the host. And what does this tell us? Well, it turns out that malaria uses a type of metabolism called type 1 fatty acid synthesis. This is the same as used in bacteria, but not in humans, so it's a potential drug target. And there's already lots of antibiotics out there that exist to target type 1 fatty acid synthesis. They're so common that they're even in toothpaste. Triclosan is an example. So, does this mean that we just go ahead and use toothpaste to cure malaria? Well, not quite, because the important thing to remember is that bioinformatics is just the start of the process. It's not good enough yet to do the whole picture. You still need to go into a lab and do experiments, the results of which might surprise you. But, if you're looking at drug targets and you've got lots of potential avenues to research, then what bioinformatics does do is helps you to target the right ones. But in the meantime, it won't be helping you cure malaria by cleaning your teeth quite yet. Although it is quite minty.